All right. Welcome, everybody, to our special Halloween live. Second. Sorry. I just got back from trick-or-treating. So,
sure, the dentures.
Boy, are my teeth tired.
Boy, are my teeth tired. So, yes, welcome, everybody, to our special Halloween edition of Monster Talk Live. My name is Matthew Baxter.
And I'm Karen Stolzner. Nice to see everyone. Nice to be here.
And I'm Blake Smith, and it's also nice to be here. So I'm trying to join the chat here, hopefully. See how that goes.
Yeah. Me as well, just in case.
Cool.
And it'll probably take a few minutes before people start streaming in, as it were.
I hope you guys are having a great Halloween. Yeah.
Oh, we're having a great one. I think Blade's at an age now, being 6, where he's just having such a wonderful time going trick-or-treating, various parties and things. And Matt just took him out trick-or-treating tonight. And so I vicariously had a great time.
Fantastic.
Is it? Yeah, I can hear somebody streaming through.
Outstanding. Well, yeah, I was just I like to get the chat turned on. So
yeah,
if I could figure out how to do that. There it is. There's a way to break the chat out. I'll stop talking as I talk through typey, that sort of thing. Anyway, so Halloween, you guys having a spooky experience over there? Is the moon spooky? Is the sky spooky? Are your neighbors spooky?
Our neighbors are always spooky in this neighborhood. Yeah. And
doesn't have to be Halloween.
Yeah, it's good Halloween weather. It's just really dreary and cold, and so it's absolutely perfect. But I thought that we could go into since we've all had I've had a very different upbringing to you guys. Yours is probably more similar, but I thought we could just share a Halloween experience from our childhood or youth. And I thought I'd just mention an experience that I had. I think it was the first time that I went trick-or-treating. So it was the first Halloween where I did anything, and I was about 8 years old, and I was growing up in a suburb of Sydney. And so I didn't dress up because, this was an American thing. So not really something that anyone did in the neighborhood. And
do you want me to share that image now or later?
I think in a moment. So I just went to all the neighbors and just said trick or treat, and they're like, what's this? And I'm like, I don't know. So everyone was confused, and they ended up giving me money, and some gave me chocolate, apples, fruit, things like that. So it was kind of productive in that regard, that I got some stuff out of the neighbors, but they were all kind of older people, mostly older women, widows, and they just didn't know what was going on. And I truly didn't know what was going on either. And so I think since then, some Australians will get into Halloween and trick-or-treating, but I think that there are some who are very resistant to the idea, and they see it as a very American thing. So I've got a picture which Matt's going to put up to, I think, just kind of give you the essence of how some Australians look at Halloween.
Nice.
There's a message you might be greeted with if you go trick-or-treating in Australia. But, of course, Halloween in America, it's been celebrated for, I think, over 100 years or something, but it does come from Samhain, going back to the Celtic culture and going back to Irish and Scottish practices. And so it's not an American thing. But, yeah, some Australians do get upset about it. But I'm sure you guys
know how to
commercialize
it. That's the thing, is we are awesome at commercialization. And the thing is, it's a holiday that, not only is great for kids, but it brings out the kids in a lot of adults.
Yeah.
And I have had so much fun, across so many Halloweens as an adult. So, visiting haunted houses and going to different, things. In my band has played gigs on Halloween where we had to dress up, and it was great. A lot of fun. But I do want to say really quickly, I think what we're going to do here is talk about either a ghost story, a personal experience we've gone through, or maybe a Halloween memory and talk about this stuff a little bit. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we answer some of the viewers' questions. If anybody has any questions about anything, we want to tackle some of those questions as well.
Aside from Matt's teeth.
Yes. And make this definitely a spooky Halloween. Now, some of you may not have seen, I was out trick-or-treating with the boy beforehand and forgot I had my teeth still in. So
yeah,
the intro wasn't very good and I had to pull them out. So for those of you that missed that, but we're ready to go now and we're ready to speak clearly for the most part. Karen, I mean, you've got an interesting one, and I think it's kind of pertinent to what's going on today in other ways. So if you want to talk about your experience.
Yeah, I don't know if briefly though, if Blake wants to talk about an experience he had, or if he's going to talk about something that is part of a larger thing. Because mine's a little longer.
I have like a really early, like vague memory of going trick-or-treating when I was probably about 3 or 4. Like I was little. And I think that's about, we used to live way out in the country before we moved into, it's not like a big city, but the town of Cartersville. But when we lived out in the country, my parents let us go trick-or-treating. I remember I dressed as Casper and my older sister dressed as Wendy. And then there's just like a long dry spell with no trick-or-treating because my parents really got involved in fundamentalist evangelical church, and they felt like trick-or-treating and Halloween was a very satanic, dark sort of thing not to do. And it got a little worse because they also decided not only were they not going to let us go, but they were going to hand out gospel tracts instead of candy, not with candy, instead of candy. So
candy would help.
So, while everybody looks forward to Halloween, we thought of November 1st as clean the toilet paper and eggs off your car day, so it was like not quite as fun. Tricks. But then when I turned 18, 19, I got out on my own and just like all my repressed Halloween needs and desires have been
fulfilled.
Well, they just like I've just been rushing to catch up on all that lost time,
Well, you made me feel like we needed to send you a bag of Halloween candy or something just to help make up for it. But sounds like you're doing okay.
I'm doing okay. I mean, I've certainly caught up on the candy, but I mean, I just missed out on so many fun Halloween type things, but man, have I made up for it. I mean, I feel like I've really, filled in, and I made sure that my kids had the opportunity, to trick or treat and experience, all the sort of horror and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I just, and in a safe way. I mean, with a few small exceptions, I don't like them to be terrified. I like, mostly because I don't want them crawling into my bed trying to I'm scared, that kind of thing. So we kind of balanced, let them be exposed to fear, but always make sure they understood it was make believe, that kind of thing. So yeah.
So Blade actually got to do his first haunted house yesterday.
Nice. Nice.
And so that was pretty cool. I mean, it was very short. I mean, it was done by a local school. So of course you can't expect much, but this other kid that he didn't know was in line in front of us and was like, will you go through with me kind of thing? And Blade's like, yeah, I'll protect you. I mean, they were same age, but Blade was acting extra tough, and we got in there, and I wish I had a beep track here to bleep over what this kid said as soon as the monster started, jumping out at him, because he was like, this, and took off the other direction. And Blade looks up at him and goes, you can't scare me. And I was just like,
yeah.
Well,
you did really well,
buddy. You've probably been on the other side of the haunting too, right? You've done some haunted houses on been the monster, right?
Well, so. I haven't necessarily. Most of my life I've been the monster, but not in a haunted house per se. But I've been through a lot
in the real world.
In the real world, I've been the monster. But I I used to rate haunted houses, so I'd go to every haunted house in town and then write a review on them. So it was great. I got in free to all these haunted houses, and it was just a blast to get to go do that. So I know haunted houses very intimately because of that.
Yeah.
And still adore them. I mean, there's a few that are a little more rough because they try so hard to make it a real experience. They have like a lot of smells and things like that in them to,
Mm.
get you in the mood.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Those ones are a little rough on me, but other than that, jump scares just don't really get to me, and I just have a great time watching everybody else get scared. And plus, I got to go
Mhm.
through one of the best haunted houses in Denver with Eileen Dietz from The Exorcist, Jonathan Tate from Jeepers Creepers, he was the creeper, or actually Jonathan Breck, Douglas Tate, who we've had on the show before, who's played
Yes.
Bigfoot multiple times, and he had just come off playing Jason in Freddy versus Jason.
The
So I
Creature
got to take these three through a haunted house, and many of the actors recognized them and were actually more scared of Eileen Dietz, who played the demon Pazuzu in The Exorcist, than they were of the monsters. So it was very fun to
She's
get to do that.
scary.
She's
scary.
a frightening woman.
It's really
Mostly because what comes out of her mouth when you meet her is, "Are you going to buy any of my stuff or not?" So
Yeah. It's come to that.
that's what's frightening. But anyway,
Uh.
I digress. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah. Oh, well, I just thought I'd talk about a favorite haunted place of mine. And I thought I'd talk about a place called the Quarantine Station. It's in Australia. So it's known as North Head Quarantine Station or Manly Quarantine Station or the Quarantine Station. And I think it's timely because here we are still in the midst of a pandemic, and quarantine is something that we've been doing on and off the past couple of years. But this place is, it's no longer a quarantine station now. It's called Q Station. It's a hotel and convention center. And Matt, you've actually been there with me. We stayed there a couple of years ago. And so it was a functioning quarantine station from about 1830 through to about 1984. So it's a long period of time. And the place is meant to be Australia's most haunted place, along with dozens of others. I think, Matt's got a picture there. So it's very beautiful. The views of Sydney Harbour are just incredible. And I was born at the hospital, which is right near there, just less than a mile away from the quarantine station. So it's just a gorgeous headland area. And
didn't we stay in it was one of these first few?
We stayed in one of the places that was used for people who were quarantining there.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have ships that would come in with immigrants. And if there was ever an incident of smallpox or Spanish influenza, which is what was, as we know, was going on about 100 years ago all around the world. And but they even had they had tuberculosis, and even bubonic plague had gone through there too. So all different kinds of exotic infectious diseases, and very few people died there. I mean, there are a lot of hauntings that are associated with the place. So there's an old picture of one of the hospitals, and for a place that was open for over 150 years, I think it's pretty remarkable. They only had about 570 deaths that are recorded there, and people who were buried there. And that was with over 13,000 people who stayed there. And some people will say, oh, there are many, many deaths that took place and they weren't recorded. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that they've done a really good job of record keeping, because if you go there, they have historical tours and they have ghost tours there today. And so anyway, I was going on these tours when I first did an investigation. It was 2001. So I feel really old, 20 years ago when I did the initial investigation. But I'd been going there just as a fan for a long time. And yes, kind of trespassing on the premises at night with friends. We'd drive up there and just go through the place. And I mean, those were the days. Things were very different to the way that they are today. But I went on so many of the tours with my friends that I ended up knowing more of the stories than the people who work there as the tour guides. And so it's interesting, because if you go and do some reading on the stories about the place today, they've changed to the stories that I knew. So I think that that's kind of indicative of it's rather doubtful that these things really happen. But there are a number of just really scary buildings in the place. I don't know, Matt, what you've got in terms of photographs, how you want to show them, but there's a morgue there where they would do autopsies on patients who had passed.
That is a creepy shot.
It's a creepy shot. And so occasionally when you go on a tour, there'll be a tour guide lying underneath that who will leap up at you and scare the crap out of you. And it looks like, I think it's just rust or something on the wall, but it looks like blood, of course. And
I've found that I have a hard time lying on those tables. I've done it before.
So.
I've done it before.
At some point, it doesn't bother you, but I guess it depends.
Yeah, it's eventually it won't bother me at all. But right now, lying on them bothers me. So to be one of those tour guides that had to do that all the time, it's a little unsettling when especially when it's like your clothes stick to the table when you get up. It's never any fun.
Then, of course, there are some cases where people will say, "Oh, that wasn't a tour guide. That was actually the ghost of a deceased person that had died there." So
are these historical tours or entertainment tours? I'm a little unclear. Like who's
I think they're unclear as well.
Okay,
yeah, well, I've been on both of the ghost tours and the historical tours. Nowadays they have investigation tours as well. I think for about $100 you can go there and do a 3-hour investigation of the premises. So they have all of those things. And I'm predominantly interested in the historical aspect of things, but I've been on all the tours, and the ghost tours are the popular ones, and they've been doing them for about, I'd say, probably 30 years.
So you guys have probably been on even more ghost tours than I have, and I feel like I've been on plenty.
Given a lot.
Hey, well, good point. And delivered it too. So on these tours, are they like a lot? Sometimes I go on tours and they're primarily narrative, and then sometimes I go on tours and they're more historical with a few narratives. So like, where do these kind of fall in?
Well, I think I've been to so many of them that I've heard the gamut of things.
Yeah.
I've heard historical aspects, and then sometimes I've heard history told incorrectly about the place. And then other times I'll hear ghost stories that I haven't heard from previous tour guides. And sometimes I've been on tours with friends and we've told the group ghost stories because we knew more than the guides did. But it's interesting to me, one of my favorite stories of the place is about a little building called either known as the caretaker's cottage or the grave digger's cottage. So I think Matt's got a picture of this place here.
Yeah,
a very atmospheric picture.
Let's see what we can find here. Right there.
Yeah, there it is. So I think the story that's attached to it, as I know it, is that there was a guy who stumbled onto the premises late one night, and he was drunk out of his mind, and he fell asleep. When he woke up the next morning, they told him, "You're going to have to stay here. This is a quarantine station. We can't let you go. We've got cases of smallpox here and cholera, so you have to stay here for the next 2 weeks and to do your quarantine." And anyway, they ended up giving him a job, and they gave him the job of grave digger and paid him in rum and lodging and gave him food as well. And apparently he was drunk all the time and could never recognize his house, so they painted it this color. When I went there in previous years, it was more of a blue. Now it looks like a kind of aqua or white or cream. But so they painted the place blue so that he would see it at night.
It looks like mint green almost to me.
Nowadays, I think it looks more like that. But anyway, so he worked there for years and was very beloved. And so his name was Arthur. And anyway, he worked there. And then one day he was sitting out on this cliff that's called Old Man's Hat. And I think he was fishing. And he had an accident and fell into the water below and drowned. And it's said that it's rather mysterious because he had dug an extra grave by accident that day. So it turns out that grave was used for him. Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
So people
not
say
nice,
that
well, that's probably why he was so tired he fell off the rock. It's like
yeah.
But
people say
grave.
that they've taken this place off the tour because there've been so many incidents there, so many accidents, people getting injured, people being attacked, by this guy, that he has a very almost a poltergeist-like presence at times. And he's just so violent that they had to take the place off the tour, which I think is effective in itself, really, to say.
Is this him
See
here?
that place over there? That could be him. Yep, there's a ghost photograph from the quarantine station. Oh, there you go. So I don't know, can't see exactly what's going on, but Matt, you could probably
I can.
guess.
That's someone walking downstairs. Someone took a picture with a slow shutter speed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all that is. But or it's Arthur. I don't know. It's Halloween, so I'll let you guys decide.
Well, yeah, I think the interesting thing, the little twist to it, is that was never a gravedigger's cottage. I think it's called that because
I don't know if it's art.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it was like
the reason that it's named the gravedigger's cottage is because it's positioned between 2 of 4 cemeteries which were on the site, and so it wasn't actually ever owned by a gravedigger, or there wasn't a gravedigger who stayed there. It was actually a medical officer who lived there instead. And moreover, nowadays this Arthur is referred to as Samuel. So I think that's rather interesting.
Wait,
that
Art has become Sam?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
weird.
So
that's weird.
I think, yeah, I can't find any record of this particular Arthur or Samuel. I've never been able to find any evidence that he existed. And
he was drunk. Okay. I mean, he didn't want to give his real name.
Yeah, maybe. But that's a fun little story attached to the place that is just constantly changing and new things added to it and other parts of the story.
Explain this.
A very tiny shot of, I don't know. I think it's probably a nurse, meant to be a nurse. See, there are hospital quarters there, and it's said that there is a matron, and she gets very angry if people tell her she's not doing a good job of cleaning the place, and she'll attack people with a broom. So a lot of violence.
She vaporized who was ever in the bed. So
yeah, but people will report that they can see if they see a mattress, they'll see the form of or an imprint of someone lying on the bed, and people will hear their name being called. They'll experience cold spots. I mean, it's a very cold. The whole place is a cold spot. Being on the headland there, you get a lot of breezes and gusts of wind coming through.
So where did these photos come from?
Well, some of them.
Google.
Yeah.
Oh.
Some of the photographs, the ghost photographs, they're taken from a Facebook page that's dedicated to the quarantine station, and the other pictures really, it's a heritage. Well, part of it's heritage, but it's also privately owned in part, and so some of those are historical pictures as well. But that's a place that I have talked about before, where I had a paranormal experience, a paranormal-like experience, where I went there, and it was depending on what part of the ship that you came in on, whether it was first or second or third class, you would have appropriate accommodations. But in the first class quarters, they had a smoking room for the gentlemen, and they had a sewing room for the ladies. And I remember being there one night with some friends, and we were on one of the tours, and we started hearing the sounds of a party. We heard music, and we heard singing, and we heard the clinking of champagne glasses. And so we thought, oh, there must be a party. This is before it was a conference center, but certainly people would hire out parts of it for parties and things like that. And so we ended up getting into the room where we could hear the party taking place. And the room was dark. There was absolutely nothing in there. It was completely quiet. So it really creeped us out for a while. And then, spoiler alert again, until we realized that there were sounds coming in from the mainland, because you have the town of Manly, which is just down the street, and you've got just Sydney wrapped around this area. And so you're hearing sounds just kind of wafting in from the mainland. So that's all that it was, but it was certainly a really fun, creepy experience to have.
Yeah. I know that audio stuff like that can be especially effective. When we get low cloud cover here, suddenly we hear noises from in our town, and we can hear, like, when airplanes come over, they sound like twice as loud. It's just really interesting how that sort of plays around with your perceptions of things, and it can create like weird effects on your, I don't know, not not emotion, but like just like the creepiness, like when there's like a lot of humidity and the sounds are a little strange. Like if you're ever out, like I was out on a boat once in the Navy, and the fog rolled in, and it was so thick. We were on a 27-foot boat, and we could not see the front of our own boat. You know, I mean, it was that thick, and that changes the audio. Like suddenly you can't really tell where sounds are coming from. You're disoriented.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like we had radar, so we weren't lost or anything. But if we hadn't had radar, that would have been super spooky, because there's really no safe way to navigate. You just have to wait until it goes away.
Well, yeah, I want to add too. I mean, you're right about the kind of distortion and the sounds. The singing and the music did sound distorted enough that it gave it that kind of old-timey, creepy, eerie, bygone era sound, which just added to the effects and the experience. That was good fun. So that's one of my favorite places on Earth. It's just so
It looks pretty.
full of history and beauty with the view and fun folklore. So.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great too. That was like my first real experience in Australia, was staying there with Karen. And
How long did you have to stay in quarantine?
It was for 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. But no, here's a shot of us, there at the Q station. Not of us, but I took that shot just because it was so cool looking out.
Outside of the cottage, yeah.
Outside of the cottage there. But the thing is I'm usually, kind of a fan of spiders and stuff like that. But the scary thing to me was this was my first Australian spider. This thing,
it's 2 feet long.
It's probably about 5 to 6 inches leg span, and that is a baby huntsman. And it was there, and of course, it's blurry because I was running past it.
Yeah, well, I've had many of those in my boots, in jackets. I mean, they're pretty harmless, but if you grow up with them, they're a nuisance. But certainly to see them the first time, and you're a spider lover as well.
Yeah, but they're, like with jumping spiders here, I love them. They pay attention to you. I mean, if you get close to them, they'll turn toward you and they can, jump on your hand. They won't bite, things like that. They're kind of cool. But when a spider, this big turns toward you and watches you, maybe not.
Yeah, so you get the saddle on them and
out.
really get them broken in. They're really tough.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many I got bucked off of when I was there. But no, it was a lot of fun getting to stay there, and my guide was Karen, so it was perfect to get to hear all these stories from someone who really knew them well. So that was a lot of fun.
It's so strange to me, because it's like those kind of places seem so old and creepy in some ways. And then you find out that, people have been living in Australia for, close to 60,000 years. You're like, oh, well, I mean, it's cute, but come on.
Oh, yeah. Our history of European settlements doesn't go back as far as it does here in America.
Too.
But,
it's like you go to England, and they're like, our buildings are 500 years old. And you're like, oh, in America, like it's been in the South, Sherman burned everything down here. So nothing's old, right? Everything's 1866 and later, right?
Well, and that's the thing, that this quarantine station was started in the 1830s. That is super old in terms of European settlement in Australia.
Sure.
Really a lot of history attached to it.
So it's got to be haunted.
What does it just make sense?
Well, and that's another interesting thing too. Even though, 570 deaths, that's a lot, but not as many as the tales that you'll be told. People will say, oh, there were thousands of deaths there. There were hundreds of people who died every week, and it's just BS. That didn't happen. They did a pretty good job.
I don't know this topic as well as I'd like to, but it seems like the big thing in ghost hunting in the past 10 years has been mental institutions, like in sanitariums, that sort of thing.
Like Waverly Hills.
Yeah. Is there a lot of that in Australia? Or I don't know the history of Australia.
The whole place is a penal colony. So.
Yeah. So like the old prison. You mean Australia? It's like
Australia is haunted because.
Yeah. We have that. There are haunted jails. Certainly, there are older parts of Sydney. excuse me, where people claim that there are the ghosts of convicts and things like that. You'll get a lot of Indigenous hauntings too, and we really should do an episode on that. I think there are a lot of. Someone mentioned the other day, they were talking about how they grew up in an area and they were told that there was a haunted billabong, which is a kind of like a water
T-shirt
area. A
Oh,
billabong, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, you have that those two different kinds of, European style ghosts, and then you have the spirits and more kind of ancestral ghosts of Indigenous people, and kind of coming together. And
I forgot about him. So
he's becoming gorged with Halloween spirit.
yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, it's the place is still open for tours, and so if you're in the Sydney area and you haven't been, you should absolutely go. If you ever get to Australia and get out to the northern beaches, it's definitely a fun place to visit.
I don't want to lose track of that, because we should go back to this. You were talking about Indigenous spirits and the way they're treated culturally. We've talked a little bit about now we've sort of pushed into Chinese ghosts, and we've talked about Japanese spirits, and it's so important, like the way that ghosts are treated culturally. And that seems to be a different thing from hunting for ghosts in the sort of American and English style. I don't know, and I'd like to learn more about how these ghost ideas are perceived culturally, and then sort of see how are they being changed by paranormal investigators, or are they, is that a separate issue? I don't know, but it's really interesting.
Well, I think that is a good point. And I think that by and large, I'm no expert, but when it comes to Indigenous stories in Australia, I think it's more a legend to be respected and to be feared somewhat. And that's often tied into the land and the concerns about nature. Whereas when it comes to European ghosts, I mean, the culture today anyway is ghost hunting. And I forgot to mention too that Ghost Hunters International had gone to the quarantine station and they did an investigation there. I don't know what year it was, but they did an investigation and basically validated all of the stories as they currently were at the time, because they're constantly evolving. And they had recordings of EVPs and had experiences themselves. And it was funny too to watch, because they were all kind of contradicting each other about their interpretations of the EVPs. We've talked about that a lot, how subjective EVP interpretation is, and that was a good demonstration of that.
I think the basic thing of, I think it said this, what do you think? You just spoil the whole thing.
Priming.
Priming, yeah. And I also I sometimes hear them, they can mean a couple of different things, and it's kind of goes back and forth as I listen to different. It's almost like those shapes for, is that a box going up or a hole going down? Kind of, I can sort of hear it flipping back and forth. I find that fascinating.
Years ago, I went to a conference that was run by the members of Ghost Adventures. So, Zach Baggins,
I do.
And the gang. And so they were, it was a little conference
gang, right?
Scooby-Doosh, yeah.
It was a little conference, a little pokey conference in Las Vegas, and just a small group of people. And Zach was giving a talk.
And we have friends that are in Vegas right now listening live. How's it going, Kurt?
Hi.
Hello.
So, at this talk, Zach was talking about this recording that he had, and that it was the ghost of a little kid who said, "I like ice cream." And then one of the other members was saying, no, he was saying, "I'm a nice kid." And so they were arguing on stage about their interpretation of this EVP. They didn't have it with them, but certainly, they'll have these computer programs, and it'll just be showing the different frequencies, and it looks very scientific. And then they'll be giving their interpretations of what they heard. And so, I've done interviews with producers for TV shows, and they will say, "What kind of equipment do you use to record EVPs?" And you're a linguist, what is it that you use to run through EVPs and clean them up, and so that you can get the best possible quality of the EVP? And it's like I really disappoint them when I say I don't use any of that junk. It's BS.
Yeah.
In a lot of my old lectures, we used to give an example of an EVP that was considered a class A, that you could not mistake what it said. And we would bring one person up on stage and give them a little piece of paper of what it was believed to, be saying, and let them read it and listen to it and let the crowd listen to it. And the only one that understood what it said was the person who read the piece of paper. Nobody else could understand what it said. So I would prime someone, I would prime someone different with a different phrase, and they would hear that phrase. And they were vastly different. One was call the undertaker, and the other one was I need a babysitter. And they would each hear exactly that.
Both could be true.
Exactly. I need a babysitter because we need to call the undertaker.
Exactly.
So yeah. I see the flaw in my approach there.
They're not mutually exclusive.
I want to hear Matt's story now.
Okay.
I think you're ready to tell yours.
Now, my story is not a Halloween story either, but
looking a bit picky there.
This is the best I can do.
It was a dark and stormy night.
now, if you haven't seen my latest Ask a Paranormal Investigator, it was a dark and stormy night in that story that I tell, and I recommend it. So be that as it may, because I just released that for Halloween as well. Now, this was an interesting kind of situation where I went, and I would always go see this. This was back when I was younger and a bit more open to other beliefs. And I would see this kind of alternative medicine practitioner. And this guy was really good, though. Everything he did would at least elicit a placebo effect, and I would feel better. So he was really good at this. But one night he was sleeping, and something kind of made him awaken. And he went to his front window, and as he was standing there looking, he sees these headlights come flying, and this van loses control and crashes right into the front of his home. And he leaps out of the way in time and everything. And it was just a very creepy thing that happened. That why was he awakened and blah blah blah.
Reminds me of the Lord Dufferin story.
A little bit of the Lord Dufferin story. Now I'm going to say right up front, spoilers. There's a lot of holes in this whole story that I'm telling you. So don't ask questions is the best way to get through this. A week later, he gets this new BMW motorcycle, and he's in a left lane at a stoplight, and the light is red, and for some reason he's compelled to go ahead and turn, and he does, and an SUV coming the other way hits him and kills him on the spot. And this was devastating because not only was he my alternative healthcare provider, he also was a friend. And so this was a pretty devastating thing to have happen. Now, so I had after that what is known as a grief hallucination, but it was really interesting. It was maybe a few days after he died. I'm walking out to my garage. Now I have a door that goes out to my garage from the home, and then another door that goes from the garage to the backyard. And that door is usually left open. So there, we had dogs that could run back and forth. But I opened up the door that led into the garage, and I noticed the light in the garage was flickering. And this was at night, and it was in the fall. So there was this nice chill in the air and everything. And I looked out into the backyard, which is fairly dark, and I see him, his name is Ray, walking toward me. And he's walking across. He's wearing this white shirt, which he almost always wore, a white sort of button-up shirt. And he's bare feet. And he's walking across the yard, and I could hear the leaves crunching as he walks. And as he gets closer, the lights flicker some more in the garage, and he vanishes just before he gets to the doorway. I'm a little freaked out. This is kind of strange. So I'm sitting there now. This part I cannot remember. I have my suspicions on which it is, but I can't remember if this was a dream or if this was reality. It's my memory tells me it was real, but we know how that works. false memories and all. But the phone rings and I pick it up and it's his voice. And he's like, "Hey, guy." And I'm like, "Ray, you're dead." And he hangs up, click. And it was just the creepiest phone call to get. I can't explain it other than the fact that it probably was just a dream. But even at that, it was an incredibly real, visceral moment. And so I can't really explain. Why would it be that he was awakened to basically have an opportunity to save himself, and then a week later compelled to basically kill himself? I can't explain that. There's no logic to it, unless it's just absolute chance.
Something's out to get him.
All you, yeah. Two opposing Grim Reapers. I don't know. But it was a very strange happening in my life, and I'll never forget it. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
But
grief hallucinations are really common. So Oliver Sacks had written a book about hallucinations, and I think I've read studies saying between 50 to 80% of people who lose a loved one will have some kind of experience. I mean, I've had dreams about my dad after he passed last year, but it's just interesting that you had two experiences.
I had
so close together.
I woke up last night at 3:15 a.m. absolutely convinced that someone in my family had died. Like, I don't know if I had a dream, but I just woke up convinced they had died. And I thought, oh no, am I about to have a grief haunting? And I was literally like just kind of scared to look around the room for fear that this was how it was going to be confirmed. Like I was going to first of all find out that they were dead, which would be horrible. But even weirder, I was going to find out that psychic powers and ghosts are both real. And when it was going to be a big night for me, Karen. It was going to be a big night.
Big
and
Halloween.
I finally got the courage to look around the room, and there was nobody there. And thankfully nobody died, but it was for just a couple of minutes the most compelling feeling that was what was about to happen. And I was ready for it. I didn't want anybody to be dead, but I was ready to have this grief experience. So I don't know what to make of that. It's just it's a weird coincidence. But I don't remember that ever happening before. But literally last night, that was like the thing that tore me awake. It was very, very stupid kind of thing. That's not a very good Halloween story. So.
Well, no, actually it is.
I think
it's a great Halloween story. And it's interesting because one of your other stories, which you tell in Karen's book, What We Do in the Shadows. No, it's
Would you believe it?
Would you believe it?
This is my husband.
Stories. Yeah. Would you believe I'm her husband? Would you believe it? Paranormal stories from people you'd least expect. Blake actually tells a story about sleep paralysis. It's quite a frightening event. Now, I think it's kind of interesting because Karen, was the other night your first sleep paralysis experience that you just had?
No, I've had a few experiences. I mean, nothing.
This was what, last night or the night before?
Maybe about 2 nights. I've been having very graphic nightmares and dreams of late. And I mean, nothing quite like Blake's, which was this ongoing thing. I mean, that was really life-shaping for you in many ways, and you haven't forgotten it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had some incidences, but it's been more a kind of pressure on my chest. And I think they're related to thyroid issues that I have, so more health issues. And the experience I had the other night, it's already becoming more and more distant as these things do. It really wasn't one of those kind of standout experiences for me, but I think it was probably the strongest experience of sleep paralysis that I've ever had. And I think Matt had gone upstairs to hop into bed with our son because he was wanting company. And so I was alone, fell asleep, and then woke up to our cat, which is a real scaredy cat. Her name's Fanny, and she's
which,
just
as a side note, actually went with Blade and I to go trick-or-treating tonight. She's like a dog. I don't know what was going on there.
She fetches. She's it's kind of
She went from house to house with us to go get candy. It was
she's a dog cat. Yeah,
Sweet.
but
It's like-
she had leapt onto my chest,
Yeah.
and it turned into this ferocious big cat and was just wanting to claw at me. And I was trying to say, Fanny, it's me, it's mummy. It's me. And I didn't know what had set her off, but she was just like hissing and spitting in my face. And I was trying to say something to her and couldn't, and realized I was having sleep paralysis, and somehow shook myself out of it and broke free from it. And I mean, my heart was thumping, and I was stressed for about an hour. I couldn't get back to sleep.
Your cat was clearly trying to steal your soul. You're
As
lucky to get
cats
away.
do,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
as
do.
vampires.
That's what they. That's how they
Well, that's
roll.
why, yeah, you're a cat hater. But apparently she was upstairs with the guys and was asleep with them. And so I don't know why I dreamt that. I mean, who knows? I mean, we can explain why we have these dreams and sleep paralysis, but we can't necessarily explain why we dream or have them about the things that we do.
Right.
I mean, why about my cat who's just such a little baby? And
you feel that sensation of being unable to move, and it feels like something's on your chest. And for many people, they fill in that blank with something. You're lucky it was a cat. I mean, like the old hag syndrome, the incubus, the succubus, these things are, well, the succubus, but generally they're not pleasant. They're not great. So
no, but I mean, it was definitely,
unless Ray Garton is writing the succubus.
Yeah.
Then they're quite horrible.
Indeed. But I truly felt something leap onto my chest and digging its claws in. I mean, it did have aspects of the old hag to it as well, in that regard. But it was that I should have had that a few nights ago is interesting, and that you should have had your experience. But I guess it's really a matter of paying attention to these things. These kinds of things happen all the time, and we believe in them and pay attention to them and make meaning of them, or we tell them with a glass of wine or a beer, and it's just fun. Like it is for us. It
can be. I mean, when they happen, it's still terrifying. But
in the moments,
when you live through it, and you're sleep paralysis, and know the most evil entity in the world is not actually in my room. That's just a feeling I'm having. That kind of thing, So hey, Kathleen.
I was going to say that, but I'm glad you said
it. No. I love her.
You have a wonderful night.
No. I do.
Happy Halloween, indeed.
Listen, I'm blessed. I love my wife very much, so I'm excited. This is one of our favorite nights of the year. I mean, it's just we watched.
Kathleen, thank you for loaning him to us for a little while for this. We appreciate it.
But we watched a little bit of American Werewolf in London, which she says is our first movie together, and I'm not going to argue with her. So
there's a ghost.
Hey, look at that.
Is it next to me?
You guys see it too?
He's upstairs with me. Hi, sweetie.
Well, I wanted to bring up something else about Halloween, and that's the whole thing about so much that's told about Halloween, or as in movies about Halloween, is of a sort of ghostly, spiritual kind of scary thing, a paranormal scary thing. But what about the whole aspect of it being the perfect night for a real psycho killer to infiltrate a haunted house, or anything like that? I mean, it just going through a haunted house, that has crossed my mind on several occasions. What if a serial killer is actually in here and he could get away with killing people, and everybody be like, wow, those are great effects.
Okay, I'm ready to greenlight. I'm going to greenlight this picture. I'm in. I think we can do this for what, 28 million. So that'll be good.
We can Blair Witch Project this.
Yeah.
25,000, no problem.
Yeah, we probably could.
Well, I think that kind of highlights a real concern about going ghost hunting, doing amateur ghost hunting, and breaking into a place, trespassing, and the kinds of things that can happen. I mean, you have in some abandoned houses squatters and kids and other people hanging out, and I think it can be pretty dangerous to go ghost hunting. And certainly we were talking earlier about sanitariums and hospitals and jails, like ones that are dilapidated, no longer in use. You can absolutely have people and animals and all kinds of things inhabiting these places, and it can be pretty risky at any time of the year.
We went I watched Willy's Wonderland with the girls the other day, like just a couple of weeks ago, and this looks so familiar. It's this sort of Five Nights at Freddy's sort of themed Nick Cage versus haunted animatronics film.
Can you repeat the name of that again?
Willy's Wonderland.
See, this concerns me because in other parts of the world that means something different.
Who knows?
Willy,
but
yeah.
The
Free
film's,
Willy, yeah.
yeah, well, it's an interesting film. But the really interesting thing about it was this looks so familiar, like where this film seems so familiar. Turns out it's filmed like walking distance from where my wife went to high school. So like it's in this old abandoned shopping center. And now when I was a teenager, I would have been all over that. I would have been in there. So I wanted to go see it. And I took my wife and my son over there and we took some pictures of the exterior just where it was shot. And the door was open. And it's like, I didn't go in. Like, I mean, but man, before I had a wife and kids, I would have definitely been in there looking around. There's zero question about that. And so it's like, it's weird because I still have these same tendencies of the thoughts are there, but I'm this whole, what is that? Responsibility. Yeah, it's just,
what was it?
Responsibility. This is the thing I'm haunted with now.
It's all pops and clicks.
Yeah.
This is the weird invisible force that seems to be messing with me all the time. Responsibility. Okay.
Well, my latest episode of Ask a Paranormal Investigator hinges on that pretty considerably because it was as a teenager breaking into a house that we believed was haunted and doing a sleep overnight there challenge.
Yeah.
And that's just not
kids
something...
never try this at home. Meet me behind the old house.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, getting to be a paranormal investigator when you're older and getting permission to go in and do these things.
Yeah. No, also
it's pretty awesome to be able to get away with that and act like you're a professional. Because I mean, I've gone to county courthouses. And they hand me the keys to the building and say, okay, we'll have a good weekend. We're out for the week. So, you have a good time investigating while, we're gone. Yeah. Give me the keys.
Well, and I think that
it's been multiple places like that.
I think it's been different for you than it's been for me. I mean, certainly I've accompanied you on some of these investigations, but for most of the ones that
helped you.
Yeah, well, that's another trespassing story. But anyway, I mean, for most of my research, it's been part hands-on, going to these places, going on tours, but doing background historical research because places are a lot less likely to hand over the keys to skeptics than they are to people who
will confirm
like yourself. I mean, you are
stories.
A skeptic, but certainly you were a part of ghost hunting groups at the time. And so that was construed as you being a believer. But, I've certainly gone to places as a skeptic and as a historian and said, I'd like to find out about any ghost stories that you have associated with the place. And they've not wanted to talk about them because, we're only interested in the history and that's ridiculous. And so you get that kind of attitude as well. But I mean, you've certainly been given the red carpet treatment for being a ghost hunter.
Well, here's the secret. Here's the big secret is what you name your group. If you're a skeptic and you name your group, we believe in Ghost Paranormal Research Society. You're going to get the red carpet treatment because, you almost sound scientific, but you definitely sound like you're going to confirm everything they want you to confirm. And then they're sadly disappointed when you don't, but that will get you in the door. We're incredibly credulous.com. We're here to investigate. These kind of things will definitely get you in the door. So that's my tip for the night for you, up and coming paranormal investigators.
Yep. All in the name.
It's all in the name.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, absolutely. We got just a few moments left. I don't know if, and of course, there's a little bit of a time differential here, but if anyone in the chat room wants to ask anyone here a question about anything, we would be happy to do a very short Q&A and we'll chat in the meantime.
I want to add as well that Halloween doesn't have to end with this show because we have a whole...
November-ween and December-ween coming up.
well, we have just our backlog of episodes of Monster Talk, not only the regular podcast, but the YouTube channel, everything that we have here, Ask a Paranormal Investigator. And if anyone wants to go out and check out my short stories on Amazon too, Halloween, it's not over yet.
No,
it's always
Halloween
around here.
So yes, absolutely.
So it seems like the chat room is mostly shocked and appalled about the criminal activity that has taken place between the three of us. So,
I would be too. I'm still kind of surprised about it myself.
Listeners.
That's like every time my kids ask me about, well, what's something you would did that you wouldn't want us to know about? Like the things that rush to my mind. Like, well, let's just never ask that question of Dad again.
Why on earth do you think I would answer that?
It's not, I don't have an answer. I just have a sudden rush of, I should write these down somewhere just so
write a book.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot.
But then you're admitting to things that you don't know if the statute of limitations has run out.
My wife wants me to talk about a haunted house. So what she's talking about is when we were in college, I ran the entertainment committee for 1 year at Kennesaw State, and we put on a haunted house that was quite spectacular. So not a haunted house as in me living in one, although I've had some interesting experiences we've talked about before. But this was a haunted house event that was tied to a concert. It was just a hoot. It was a real big fun thing. And then a lot of my friends participated in it. And the funniest part is that years later, one of my friends believes in his heart, and I'm not going to argue with him. He believes in his heart that he put the thing on and that I wasn't there, which that's the part that I find a little harder to swallow. I've got the notebooks with all the paperwork, everything still, it was my thing, but memories change, and I've been slowly edited out of one of my favorite accomplishments. It's just kind of one of those funny things. So
boy, oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway,
we have another question.
We find it fun. So go ahead.
Yeah. We have another question. And that is, would Shadow of the Vampire count as based on a true story episode?
Shadow of the Vampire, is this the
that's the Willem Dafoe?
It's the making of Nosferatu with Murnau, and then but it's got the tricky part is the vampire's real. That's the thing, right? It's a comedy. It's a dark. Dark comedy.
I think it's a great movie. I really like. Willem Dafoe was the perfect person to play Max Schreck, I think.
I loved the movie when I saw it. Let's just do a mini based on a true story right now. I don't think it meets the spirit of it because it's a farcical take or a fantastical take on a real thing. So I don't think
yet Mothman Prophecies isn't.
Well,
Annabelle isn't.
No, I'm just saying that nobody's claiming, as far as I know, that F.W. Murnau hired a real vampire to make Nosferatu. Right? So it's I don't think anybody's really arguing that. So I mean, what do I know? Maybe they are. I don't know. So,
it's true. It's true. Yeah. Okay. Have any of you ever been hit or pinched working in a haunted house?
I've been scratched. I've had clothing tugged on and pulled.
Well, but that's going through a haunted house, right?
Oh, sorry. I think you took it up.
Because you're working in a haunted house.
Okay.
I'm kind of blending houses that are allegedly haunted with I paid some money for a haunted house.
A commercial haunted house.
That's where I'm coming from real haunted houses.
I've been pinched in both.
Yeah.
I've been slapped in both. Surprisingly not. Here's the funny thing is you get tough guys that go through that act like they're going to knock you down if you scare them. And then you scare them and they scream and run. And it's I'm going to tell you, it's not 9 times out of 10. It's more like 49 out of 50. You don't get someone who stand up to the monster. It's hilarious.
You're absolutely right. And this explains a really weird thing that happened to me. So Kathleen and I went into a haunted house, and she was behind me, a little scared because they were doing a lot of jumping out and stuff. Well, we ran into two other people, two ladies who decided they wanted to also be behind me. So like now there's a little choo-choo train with Blake in the front and then Kathleen and then two ladies behind her. Right. So as you say, the people in the haunted house expect people to move out of the way, to jump back, to run, to do all kinds of things. I couldn't do anything but move forward. So when in the darkness, this guy jumps out, instead of me backing up, I'm actually moving forward and he slams into me and then bounces off because he's not hitting me. He's hitting me plus my wife, plus this other woman, plus this other woman. I'm not going anywhere. I'm like a wall. And so we wiped out that poor guy. He laid on the ground. We like, there went the scare. It was like, it was astonishing. And we just,
you might have scared a few other people though.
I couldn't even stop to look and give help because my little train was pushing me along. I had to go.
Well, I'm seeing our son walking past every few minutes with a new piece of candy and eating it. And so I think I need to stop the hemorrhaging here.
All right.
Maybe end the show. And
understandable. Yeah, I really have to say that this has been a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that we've had an opportunity to get together. I mean, it's so good, Blake. We really enjoy anytime we get to have a little chat with you, and we were completely blessed this morning getting to hear your new ad for Manscaped. It was fantastic. So listen to some future Monster Talk episodes, people, because Blake does a fantastic ad for Manscaped.
Which episode is it coming out in?
This is Guignol.
Guignol.
So, yeah, if you do have like an allergy or it's just not part of your diet to have so many puns, you might avoid it.
Yeah.
But
they'd already be gone, Matthew. They'd already be gone.
I already mentioned on Twitter that this is worth listening to just for the ad alone.
Oh, that's very kind.
So, it was brilliant. And And I liked the additions that you included in, even after we got to read the
extra
copy.
puns. We saw the draft and there were more puns.
I had to punch it up a little.
You punched it.
Yeah. Yep.
I told my daughter Sophie. Well, actually, she told me. She came in and she was, "What are you laughing at?" I said, well, "I'm reading this copy I wrote." I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "I think it sounds like you're being paid to do puns." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I got achievement unlocked." Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Winning.
Exactly.
Definitely. Tiger's blood right there.
That's right.
Well, happy Halloween, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we've got more fun content coming up. So just keep an eye on this channel and we'll be seeing you again soon.